Hello, and welcome back to Now We're Really Talking, the podcast where we go beyond the surface and have open and honest conversations about mental health. In today's episode, I'm joined by Conor Warren, the founder and CEO of Spark UK. Conor began campaigning for better mental health support for young people as a teenager, and since then, Spark has grown into a national organisation. In this conversation, we talk about Conor's own mental health journey and his journey with Spark. Before we get into the episode, a quick content note. This episode includes discussions of anxiety, depression, grief, burnout, and mental health crisis. Please listen with care and step away or pause if you need to. If anything in this conversation brings up difficult feelings for you, remember you're not alone. If you're in the UK, you can contact Samaritans for free 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on 116 123. Or if you're abroad, you can find a local helpline at findahelpline.com. With that said, let's get into the episode. So, Conor, thank you very much for joining me. How are you doing today?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, I'm all right. It's getting through January slowly. I'd be grateful when there's more lighter evenings and more hours in the day where I feel like I can go outside. Yeah, it's a bit gloomy. But if we just go straight in, obviously, you're doing incredible things in the mental health space. I don't think anybody really is comparable to what you've done with Spark. But when did you first realise what mental health was and that mental health is a thing?
Yeah, so for me, I sort of got involved in the mental health space quite early on. So I always really struggled as a kid with my own mental health. I was in therapy from a very young age, going through the Thrive program, dealing with anxiety and a whole range of things as a young person. And then I moved to secondary school, and within secondary school, on one of the first weeks of year seven, they introduced this opportunity called the Mental Health Ambassador Program, which was a pilot project run by the local council. And the aim was to train up students on a 10-week program to teach them about mental health so that they could deliver assemblies, presentations around mental well-being. And yeah, I was selected to do that. So it was a little bit like school council, but for mental health. And it was really intriguing. And we did that for 10 weeks, did an assembly at the end of it. And then as a group, we said, oh, we want to do more of this. So I continued learning about mental health through that and did that within school for a few years and really learned what mental health actually was, because it was a topic that you hear about all the time, but I never fully understood that, it's something that everybody has. When I was younger, it was like mental health is this really scary thing that's so distant from me. But in reality, it is something that every single person deals with and every single person has. And yeah, it's been a really interesting journey.
It's a great point, and it's amazing how one school project can have such an impact on you, considering the things that you've gone on to do. And if you hadn't been at that school or you'd not been selected for the project, then it's amazing how things could have turned out. But going back to when you were growing up, how did your mental health challenges present themselves as you were growing up?
Yeah, so I grew up as a very anxious kid. Due to various circumstances, I was a very shy kid that kind of kept to myself, and for a long time I was sort of showing these different things that weren't being understood as anxiety or weren't being understood as anything. So it was actually probably year three or year four, and I had a very distant family member die, and that was the first experience I'd ever had of like death and grief. And I remember going to speak to the school counselor when that happened, and that was supposed to be one session, just like oh, somebody's just died, we'll chat to you. And it ended up being the next 3 years of my life where I was going through counseling every single week. And yeah, it was really this thing of actually I didn't understand what I was going through, but I had this book that I will always remember called Mighty Mo, and it was a worksheet book that I would go through with my counselor, and it was like identifying and looking back on that now. I still have that book in storage somewhere with all of these drawings and emotions, and I sort of had these massive emotions that I never fully understood was mental health. And yeah, I was just really scared. I didn't want to go and socialize with people my own age. I was always sort of kept with my mum as much as I could. I didn't really enjoy sports or anything like that. So I was like not wanting to get involved in anything like that. And yeah, I just really struggled and really dealt with a lot of stuff. And there was a lot of big things with my own health and various members of my family health that also meant that that really triggered a lot of stuff. So it's yeah, a really challenging time in which I was too young to understand what was going on, but I knew that something was going on. And luckily it got caught, and it was identified by school, and I was able to get support from that. But that was only again for a fluke that something happened and it triggered that.
Mm. Yeah, it, it it's good that you got the support, but the fact that it has to be a fluke and you're kind of lucky to get that support. And so you had counselling for 3 years, and then what was the kind of progression in your mental health? Have you been able to maintain that kind of stable, positive mental health, or have there been more challenges along the way?
It's definitely been an interesting roller coaster of a journey. I think I'd be lying if I said it was all straightforward. Unfortunately, life is not straightforward. I ended primary school and I moved across the county. So I went from one place. My parents divorced over the summer of year six. So I left year six thinking I was going to one secondary school, started year seven in a completely different secondary school in a different area, knowing nobody. And yeah, that sort of was like this massive thing of like, I don't start in year seven, not knowing a single person in this school, not having anybody near me. It was an interesting thing. But luckily, somehow I survived. And during the whole of secondary school, I didn't really have any counseling, didn't have any therapy. I was quite a kind of just get on with it. I didn't really think much into it until sort of in sit form. So in the last few years, I had basically a massive breakdown. I had a complete mental breakdown. I was dealing with depression, anxiety, and low mood, and I was really struggling. Again, that was similarly through a family member dying and me speaking to pastoral support at school. And then again, they identified that I needed counselling. I was like, oh, I'm not bad enough for counselling, was my thought. I was like, I don't need a counsellor. At my first counselling session, they were like, yeah, you need to come and see us a lot more often. So it's been something that I've had a really good relationship with in the last few years of actually understanding that it is important to have. And yeah, my journey's been an interesting one and it will never fully recover. And I think I'm in a really lucky position now where I've got a good support network around me that when I do have those sort of downfalls of my mental well-being, I can have an ecosystem of people that do support me. And I think that's been really important in, yeah, just in life now as being an adult.
But one of the things you've talked about is the intersection between mental health and physical health, and actually mental health challenges causing physical health challenges. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that and your experience around that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think so many people forget that mental health is the exact same as physical health. So, you exercise your physical health in so many ways, but most people don't typically think to exercise their mental health. And for me, the two are so parallel that if you are suffering poor mental health, then your physical health is likely to be impacted. And vice versa, if you are not looking after your physical health, your mental health isn't likely to be very good. So for me, I try and utilize the both. I mean, it's great. I try and go out for a walk every single day out in fresh air to go and clear my mind and just to exercise and keep things. And I think that is something that's really important because the two are completely parallel in each other. And yeah, if you don't focus on one, the other one will fall short. And that's really important to remember because it is so easily forgotten because you think, oh, I don't need to worry about my physical health or I don't need to worry about my mental health. And before you know it, it just keeps piling up and piling up. And yeah, it then reaches breaking point.
Yeah, and you've had experience of where your anxiety has made you feel ill, when you're
Yes.
out, and how did that feel? And to
Yeah.
kind of discover that they were connected.
Yeah, so when I was in year 12, I suffered thing of anxiety-induced sickness. So basically, I was out with friends. One day, I was on a school trip to London. I remember the day vividly. And I was in this Camden Markets getting some food, and there's this lovely chicken stand. I thought, well, that looks amazing. So I was like, right, I'm gonna get some chicken from there. And it arrived. I went to eat it, and I ate one bite, and I couldn't eat anymore. And I couldn't put my finger on why I couldn't eat anymore. And I was feeling sick, and I was like, all right, this is just a fluke. Don't worry about it. And then that happened continuously for the next 2 years of my life, where every time I went out, I would basically my stomach would be like, yes, you want food. I'd order food, and then the second the food arrives, I can't eat, and it just completely stopped. And for a long time, I really couldn't put my finger on what it was. I went through several GPs, I went through doctors, I went through therapists. I was like, what is this thing? And nobody could put their finger on it. They were wondering whether it's to do with allergies or to do with, X, Y, and Z. And it was only when I finally started counselling, sort of a year after this developed, and they said that when your body feels out of control, the only thing it can control is what you eat. So for me, although I wasn't feeling anxious at the time, because I was out with friends, I was just having a bit of fun. I was like, why would I be anxious about that? In reality, it was life that was just happening, and the only way that my body and my mind could deal with life was through stopping something, and the only thing it could stop was my eating. And that was something that was a real challenge and something that I do still deal with on a day to day. There's no miraculous solution, and it's something that my poor friends have had to deal with quite a lot as well because it can come and go. But it's about how it's something now that I used to be quite ashamed of it. I used to be, because it's embarrassing. I had like when I was in a restaurant, the waiters would come up and say, "Is your food all right?" And I have to be, well, yeah, it's fine. I can't physically eat it. Um, but yeah, over time it's become a lot more manageable. And through the work I do and through just talking about it with other people, I realize how many other people do suffer with things like that. And it is, the mind and body are so connected, and one can influence the other, and you don't realize that until you actually dig deeper into it.
I find it so interesting the way and the power of the mind, what the mind can do. Like even in one respect, it's illogical if you cannot eat when you're feeling anxious, but to actually have that happen when you're not feeling anxious is pretty wild. Um, but yeah, it's something that it's great to talk about because it's not something I had kind of come across before I saw your post.
Yeah.
So if we move to the to all your incredible work, can you just talk kind of the origin story of Spark, how old you were, and the day that you came up with the idea?
Yeah. So as I said earlier, took part in this mental health ambassador program at school, and it was going really well. We were doing Ofsted conferences, we were doing all sorts of random side quests, which as a year 8, year 9 student was absolutely great. And then the downfall was when COVID began. So COVID, like many things, it meant that a lot of things within school had to start being restricted. So the program lost funding, all the funding got cut, and then we started going through a number of staff members that were leading it. So, due to a number of priorities, it kept having to change, and before you know it, we ended up having no staff that were able to support us in delivering this within the school. And it was such a time where it was needed because mental health awareness was on the uprise during COVID, and we started having all these ideas that we wanted to do, and they were shut down by staff members because, oh, we don't have the time for that, we don't have the resource for that. And when we started in December 2020, we were just coming out of lockdown, and we, as a mental health ambassador group, decided on let's create an advent calendar. It was a stupid idea that I came up with, which was every day we are going to put a funny cat video up on in tutors because I saw some research that was like if your site is down a positive, then your day is more likely to be positive. So we're like, oh, let's do that. So I was a bit geeky, love making websites. So I was like, I'm gonna make a website, I'm gonna make a digital advent calendar, and every day there's gonna be a funny meme or video or just good news story. And we did that within our school, and everybody really liked it within our school. And I remember after that chatting to my parents, and they said, "Oh, you should, get celebrities to do it." And I was like, "That's a great idea." I was like, "There's nothing out there like that." Um, so yeah, we sort of got together as a group of friends, and we started like, let's see what we can do with this. We, expected nothing to happen. We thought maybe we'll get a couple Love Islanders that send in some videos, but we didn't really expect anything from it. And yeah, we started emailing people, just doing it within our own school. We're like, yeah, we'll just do this as a little thing. And the first year we did it in aid of young minds. So we created this campaign, and we started getting big names. We had Stephen Fry, Bradley Walsh, Emma Thompson, all these celebrities just sending us videos, giving tips on mental health. And we thought we can do something with this. There's so much potential here. So we met as some friends and we were ranting about mental health. We were ranting about the system, the fact that resources were completely out of date, that every video about mental health was like an early 2000s BBC Three documentary, which was so cringy and cheesy to watch. And yeah, we just wanted more awareness and more education for youth mental health. So we listed for about an hour all this stuff we wanted. Then we said, why don't we just try doing this ourselves? Why don't we just try creating resources around mental health? And that's kind of where the idea of Spark came, was let's just see what happens. And yeah, it was just a complete whirlwind from there of like a group of teenagers. I think I was 14 at the time, back in December 2020. Like, let's come up with this idea, and yeah, so where we are now has been something that's been pretty amazing.
It is wild, and the the ability when you have a group of young people who are dedicated and care about something to be able to just go and build something is amazing. Like you say, it's easy to rant, and a lot of people can complain, especially with social media, but to actually put that into something positive. And yeah, do you think obviously that you've done amazing work, but do you think where we are now, 5 years on, could a 14-year-old be having the same conversation, or have we moved on as a society where that rant wouldn't be possible?
I think it is both a yes and no to that. I think we were in a very unique position during COVID, where everything was done online. So everybody could, nobody had anything to do. Everybody was online. So celebrities were happy to do videos so they had nothing better to do with their time. And people were constantly doing Zoom calls. So the only way you could communicate was over Zoom and things like that. So in many ways, it was a lot easier because everybody was just sat at their desk and everybody was just running to emails. So for me, I was really fortunate where I could just find people's emails and email them, and because they had nothing better to do with their time, they would happily meet me for a call. However, equally, because of social media, it is so easy to go viral, to go, rant about something on TikTok, and before you know it, you've got a few million people behind you. So I'd say it's easier to create short-term noise on social media and nowadays. So if I was to set up Spark nowadays, it probably would have only been a short-term thing because you make a bunch of noise, get a bunch of views, then next week everybody's forgotten about it, nobody cares anymore. Whereas back 5 years ago, people's attention spans were a lot longer. So people did remember a lot more, and it was a lot easier because there was less. I think now it is such a, rightly so, it's a saturated market, and there are so many incredible charities out there, and there's so many incredible advocates and influencers and people doing such good work that now often it can become noise, and you can be one of those people among that group. So yeah, it can be a lot harder nowadays to actually try and stand out from the others and try and create something, but there is still chance to be able to do it if you actually put the time and effort in.
Yeah, it is interesting, and I think we have moved on a lot, and there is that ability to go viral, but actually what you've been able to do is continue it for 5 years and go from strength to strength. And throughout that time, you're at school, and then you've had other jobs, you're at uni now. How would you actually manage to juggle, and how would you manage your mental health in the middle of all of it?
Yeah, I think that's a journey that I've been really learning for the past 5 years. Is when you are a young entrepreneur and a young advocate, it can be very difficult to be very quickly absorbed in other things. So when I started, I was doing my GCSEs at the time, and it was like Spark was, of an evening, I'd, do a couple emails, and there wasn't much going on because we were still relatively small, and it was just the fun stuff. But over time, as Spark continued and grew on such a rapid scale, it was really difficult to balance the two. And actually, again, as part of my mental breakdown, I completely burnt out. I was doing sit form as well as working every hour of every day on Spark and on a number of other projects. And it meant that, yeah, I just was not prioritizing myself. And I was working myself till I was sick because I needed to get this done, and I thought I need to say yes to every opportunity because then this will help me grow and this will help me do this. And all my money was being spent on going to London and going to do things and buying equipment so I can create this. And yeah, it was this whirlwind of a time where it felt like everything was going right professionally, but personally everything was going wrong. Um, so it took a long time to really come to terms with where the right healthy balance is. And I'm in a fortunate position now where I'm able to make a living from Spark, meaning that actually my work-life balance is a lot more balanced because I am a paid employee now. So I can sort of separate it a bit and do, I'm a uni student now, but my lectures luckily are only on Thursdays and Fridays. So I work for the charity Monday to Wednesday, and then Thursday to Friday I do my uni work. But it's definitely taken a long time to really understand what the balance is and when to say no to things and when to take a break. It's not often I get to take holiday because, you're in the age of phones and social media and WhatsApp. Everything's done on WhatsApp, so you can quickly, your team members messaging you, or this email needs to be done urgently. So yeah, it's been learning when to say no, learning when to take a break, and making sure that I do listen to my body and do listen to my mind. And when I need to go to sleep, I do go to sleep, and I try to get healthy sleep time, and trying to go out for walks every day just to sort of relax the mind and exercise the body.
So I think saying no is one of the most difficult things, especially when you're first getting set up and established, because
Yes.
it's like, if I say no to this, what could it lead to? And actually realizing that it's healthy to say no, and actually picking the opportunities right for you. How do you deal with that? You talked about the balance and being able to rest. Do you still get kind of guilt when you rest, or have you got to a point where you can fully let go of that and just have downtime?
Think I will always have guilt when I rest. I'm somebody that likes to keep myself busy. So I don't know how to rest. I took 2 weeks off over Christmas and I did not know what to do with myself. My best mate was getting messages from me every day going, I'm bored. What do I do with myself? So yeah, rest is not natural to me, and it is something I'm learning. What I tend to do is I try to go in every year I'll have a few weekends where I'll go away and I'll no digital, no phones, nothing, and I'm just with family, with friends, and just signing out of that. But yeah, it's about like being able to. I try and actually at lunchtime I'll try and sit and just watch some TV for a bit while having lunch rather than sit scrolling through emails. And it's just that balance of like making sure that I do take rest and I don't feel guilty for it because you can't work yourself too hard because you do need a bit of a life.
It's so difficult. It's something that I really struggle with. That when I do rest, I feel guilty for resting, but then I get to a point where I can't work anymore. it's something that's plagued me for a long time and probably will continue to. If we go back to when you started Spark, you said you were still at school, and 14, 15 is an age where I know that if I talked a little bit about my mental health and the reaction wasn't great. What was your reaction as, especially, I think it's harder as like a 15-year-old boy to talk about mental health. You're starting a charity, and often jealousy could be a big thing, but also it being about mental health. What was the reaction like to starting?
Very bad, I'm going to be honest. Yeah, it's been, I've had pretty much everything you could get in the last 6 years. I'm from North Devon, quite a rural and small community. So everybody knows everybody, everything gets around quite quickly, and people are very opinionated. And for me, I started this and I had people in my class that didn't agree with what I was doing. They didn't understand what mental health was. So I was called every name under the sun. I'd get them shouting across the class at me. I would get all sorts, and that was like when we first started. And then we had, I had some incidents as well where we got a lot of online bullying, and I was told not to leave the house for my safety. And we got a lot of sort of really bad stuff. So we've had some interesting things. It's been interesting, but for me, that motivates me more when people are saying those things, typically it means they don't understand what they're saying. They don't understand what mental health is. And if they don't understand what mental health is, that means we're not doing a good enough job because that's our whole point to teach young people about mental health. So if they don't understand it, we're clearly not doing a good enough job. We need to do more. So that's where that sort of motivation comes in. Actually, a lot of the time, if I could speak to them, which I'm advised not to speak to them, but if I could, I would say, well, actually, everything you've just said, I do agree with you at. I do agree with what you're saying about mental health. You just think of it this way, when actually, in reality, it's this way. And if we actually had a conversation rather than you spilling all this stuff towards us, then we could actually say, and we could probably agree on stuff.
Has there ever been a point where you thought it's not worth all the hassle, and wanted to kind of leave it all?
Yeah, I think there's definitely been times, the charity sector at the minute is an awful place. There's not a lot of funding. There's not a lot of anything support-wise. Yeah, there have been a number of times where I've said, why am I doing this? Why don't I just go and just stop this and go and get a proper job as such and go and just forget about it all? Because it is a very unique position where, to some extent, I've sort of been in this public eye image thing for the past 5 years. And it has been, I've sort of lived my life quite vulnerably on social media and through doing public speaking and through the media and all this stuff. And there have been times I've been like, maybe this isn't for me, and maybe I do just need to take it aside. But again, most of the time when that happens, then the next day we'll get like a testimony or we'll get a success story or you'll get a parent messaging you saying, our young people use this, and often those two come pretty much a day apart, and it motivates you and reminds you why you're doing what you're doing.
You touched on it there, but the charity sector is so difficult. How do you, as a founder, CEO, this is your job now as well. How do you keep yourself sane when there is all that pressure?
Yeah, I think we are in a very unique position as a charity where we don't have many overheads. So we are quite lucky where actually we don't have to spend, you know, in an ideal world, we could employ loads of people and we could have offices and we could do amazing work. But right now, we can't do that. And we accept that that's not in a position where we're at. For me, it's always a perk to be able to be paid because life, you need to be able to pay rent, you need to be able to pay this and that. Um, but it's not be all and end all. We will always operate free for schools. All of our stuff we'll try and be free. So when it comes to funding, I spend a lot of time doing applications, doing grants, doing speaking to corporate sponsors, speaking to donors, and really trying to get as much as we can to support the projects in which we're running and enhance them further. And there were times where I would sit there and we would get a rejection, and I'd just sit in my room and just be like, why am I doing this? Why am I still trying to get the money? Why am I still trying? And it was only, we've been running, we're in our sixth year now, and we got our first big grant this year. So after 5 years of operating, it took us 5 years to get our first big bit of money. So that amount of time, most people probably would have quit by then, because don't waste 5 years of your life waiting for money. But that sort of motivation, and that, we've got these, we got that money now, which opens doors up to other money. And it's just that, like, continue. We've come this far. I don't want to stop now.
Yeah, it's testament to you that you have gone that long and done everything that you have done without that funding, and you've kind of kept going and kept going. There's a thing that keeps popping up on like social media where the man's mining and he turns around just before the diamonds, but you kept going and you've got that reward, which is amazing. And what does Spark actually do at the moment for young people?
Great question. Would be nice to know myself. No, we do loads of random stuff. So we do a lot of work with universities on research around youth mental health. So we work with a number of universities on research projects. We're currently launching a online platform for young people. So the LinkedIn for youth mental health, where young people can learn new skills around mental health. They can take part in online courses, opportunities. And we also create resources for schools. So we've got over 350 schools around the UK that use our mental health resources. So those are things that we felt like we missed out on in our education. So a lot of the time will be like, what topic were we not spoke was not spoken about within school? And we said, let's work with professionals and young people to create a resource around that schools can deliver. We do a lot of webinars, a lot of videos all around mental health. So actually, everything is sort of relevant and everything is fun to watch. Most of our stuff is TikTok style videos, because actually that is what young people want to watch, and that's what I want to watch as a teenager. I don't want to sit and watch a 20-minute video with loads of animations. I want to sit and watch 2-minute TikTok.
Yeah,
So yeah, we try and do as much as we can to sort of, very cliche, but spark conversations.
yeah. Is that where the name came from?
I don't know where the name came from. I'm not going to lie to you. I joke every time that I was lying in bed at 3 a.m. one morning and the name Spark came to my head, and I got out of bed and wrote on a massive whiteboard Spark, and then went back to sleep. That is what happened. I don't know where that name come from, but there it
Well,
is.
that's incredible and helping so many people. But kind of going back to you and your life, and you're at university. That came around quite quickly, that decision. What was it that made you choose to go to university and find that new challenge?
Yeah. So for me, I took a gap year. I told myself I'm never going to university. I'm done with education. Year 13, I didn't really attend any of my lessons. I just kind of forgot about year 13 and was like, oh, I'm just going to turn up for my assignments and do my exams, and that's it. And I just hit a real brick wall in year 13. So that put a massive kind of stigma in my head against education. I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. Said I'm never going to uni ever, ever, ever. Um, and yeah, I got a job, worked in marketing for 9 months for a holiday company, and it was a 9 to 5 office job. It was fun at times, but equally it was quite mundane. I was still living in North Devon. I was living at home, and I just wasn't feeling. I was feeling a bit stuck. I was feeling a bit like this isn't what I want to do for the rest of my life. I don't just want to sit working in my town, living at home. That's not what I want to do. I love traveling. I love going to the city. I am a city person. I do love it. And because of the situation Spark's in right now, I do need to be able to commute to London. I do need to be able to commute to airports to go places. So North Devon wasn't a viable option anymore, because it is in the middle of nowhere and no trains or buses like it. So yeah, it was 2 weeks before term started. I applied for uni. Decided to do a foundation degree in business. Got some student accommodation very quickly. And yeah, it was just like, I want to come and live in the city. And I looked for sort of jobs and house shares for a while, but nothing was coming through. And yeah, I just stumbled across this course, seemed right for me. student accommodation fell through, and everything just fit into place in the space of a couple of days. And within 2 weeks of me deciding, I moved into my room, which is pretty crazy.
And you enjoying the course?
Yes, yeah, I'm loving it. It's a good fun, and for me, I've been doing Spark so long, and I've taught myself so much about business and about charities and about entrepreneurship. However, there are equally many gaps in my knowledge because I've not been interested in that as such, but that you do need to know. So it's been really good to learn academically about business and about the different areas in which I hadn't known much about before.
Yeah, yeah, it makes a lot of sense. One final topic I just want to touch on. You share online, um you're a Christian. Is that something you find really beneficial for your mental health?
Absolutely. For me, faith has been a fundamental point for my life for the past few years. It's been something that's really supported me in my mental health. You look at the Bible, and there's so many things inside the Bible that can steer my life's direction and steer and be that fundamental pillar for me. If you look at the statistics nowadays, you've got the Quiet Revival, which is ongoing at the minute within the UK, and you've got these incredibly high statistics of young people seeking faith and seeking church, and that's because young people are seeking purpose. And I found my purpose through the Bible and through Christianity. Um, and yeah, it's really helped me through the difficult times. I found faith during the lowest points of my life, and it was the thing that helped me through that. And not only faith, but the church communities. So for me, I've got my own church families. I'm a member of three churches now, but between Exeter and North Devon, and I've made lifelong friends where you have a very unique bond and unique friendship. And yeah, it's really been a pillar of the last few years of my life, and I think it is something that many people in both the Christian world and the mental health world, they don't see overlap. And the mental health world is very secular, the Christian world is very, oh, mental health isn't real kind of thing. But in reality, there is so much overlap because the Bible talks so much about mental health, and it doesn't directly say mental health because the terms weren't around back then. But there are so many stories of biblical characters dealing with mental health, and actually, prayer isn't the answer to everything because prayer can't solve your depression straight away. But between merging the two, they can have very positive repercussions on each other. And yeah, I think it's been a huge pillar in yeah, just teaching me and supporting me in yeah, my own personal growth and my own professional growth as well.
Like, I remember I did some um kind of mental health charity work, and somebody from my local church. I don't go to church, but I was at an event and she gave me this book of like a page on 12 of the people in the Bible, and actually different kind of types of mental health, and it was really interesting to read. And I'm interested in the future and the way religion is changing, and that actually religion is making a comeback in maybe a different form, but
Yeah.
it is really interesting. Um, and so what's next for Spark? You say you're building the LinkedIn for young people's mental health. You had the
Yes.
final All-Star Advent calendar. But what is something that you want to build towards now?
Yeah, for us, the future of Spark is fostering young people to do what we've done. So I'm now in my 20s, which is not very fun to say, but I'm no longer a teenager. I'm no longer young to many people. I got called old by everybody on my birthday. So for me, our vision with the Spark is bringing in the next generation to create resources to really steer the direction. I was in a very fortunate position with what I've done, where I just, built everything from nothing, and I had the determination and the drive to do that. And everything I've learned, I want to give to the next generation and give to the young people to do exactly what we've done, but 100 times better. So yeah, for us at Spark, we're really just trying to, bring those young people in and really support those young people to do whatever they want to do, and yeah, support their mental well-being and continue working with schools to ensure that mental health is spoken about and it's not just outdated resources, it is relevant and it is fun and engaging, and that every young person does learn about it and actually understand what mental well-being and mental health is.
Amazing. Yeah, I think the world would be a much better place if/when that is the case. Final question, which is very similar to the last Advent calendar. If you could give your past self when you were struggling the most some advice, what would you say?
That's a great question, and you'd think because I've just done a campaign on that, I would have an answer to that, but no. I would say that keep going. Things can feel tough in the moment, and things can feel very isolating, but in reality, if you keep at it and keep, whether that's mental health or whether that's anything, just if you're feeling low, if you keep sort of keep going, keep trying, speak to people, speak to friends, and that will help you. That will help you get to that next step. That will help you get to whatever that is. There is always light at the end of the tunnel, and sometimes it can feel like you're in complete darkness. But if you keep going, there will always be a light at the end. And I think that's really important to remember, is that there will always be better times, and you will always have incredible things in life that you just won't expect.
Yeah, yeah, it's really great advice for your past self, but for anybody now going through a tough time, or I know that I'll have tough times in the future, and it's really important to remember that. Um, so yeah, thank you very much for joining me, Conor. It's been amazing to hear your
Thank you for
story
having me.
and to hear somebody else hugely admiring all the work you're doing is incredible. I'm grateful to be able to work with you on a few different things, which is awesome. But do you want to share your links or your social media?
Yeah, so you can check out Spark at sparkuk.co.uk, or you can find me on conorwarren.co.uk. Yeah, all the social links are there.
Amazing. We'll link it in the podcast description. So yeah, thank you very much, Conor, and thank you everybody for listening. I really, really appreciate it. And yeah, look after yourself and keep talking, and I'll catch you in the next one. Once again, thank you so much for tuning in to Now We're Really Talking. Remember, if you feel like you need to talk to somebody, you can contact Samaritans for free, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on 116 123. Or find out more about mental health at mind.org.uk. Remember, it is not a weakness to speak, and you're never alone.